Welcome to AEW 360 Live at Advertising Week, New York. This is day 2. I'm BJ Smith. I have with me Grant Munroe from Shutterstock Custom.
Custom.
How you doing?
Yeah, good.
You enjoying the show so far?
Yeah, I got here early yesterday from an early flight from Toronto, and enjoying my first day and looking forward to Tuesday, the big day.
And you saw a few of the lines at some of the events.
Yeah, it's hot and spicy in the lineups in New York.
It's pretty cool though.
Yeah, I've got a speaker's badge, so I just bypass them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Excuse me, coming through.
That's right.
So tell me a little bit about Shutterstock Custom. It actually started as Flashstock.
Yeah. So I started a company called Flashstock about 4 years ago in Toronto, Canada, and we were helping brands create content at scale, which means faster, cheaper, better. Content is the core to everything a brand does, and the way that they create it is a bit slow, it's a bit analog. It tends to be full production, it tends to be the standard creative process. There's not a lot of technology applied to it.
Okay.
And so with that, we looked at it and figured out that if we applied software, data science, and a global network of creators from all around the world, we could drastically streamline it, get the clients the authentic on-brand content that they wanted, much faster, cheaper, and better, which is a thing that'll never go away. And so we grew, in 4 years, we grew to over 100 people as Flashstock, and then were acquired by Shutterstock in June of this year.
Okay,
and
recently.
Yeah, last week we were relaunched as Shutterstock Custom, and I've now changed job titles from CEO and founder to General Manager of Shutterstock Custom.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
So explain to me how does this technology actually work? So we're familiar with the stock photography that's been around for a while. But how is the customization? How does it work?
So stock is very different than custom because it's pre-shot.
Right,
It's
exactly.
You've got a library of assets. So the good thing about stock is you see exactly what you're buying. The bad thing is it's generic. It's not custom to the brand.
And I think today people's eyes have gotten so keen, and it's pretty easy for them to spot that stock photography.
Like you probably hear it like 1,000 times every day here at this conference, but it's authentic content. And so as people shift to mobile and are consuming different formats of video, if they don't believe the content that they're seeing is real, they're not going to engage with it at all. And so it puts the pressure on brands to tell a really unique and differentiated story, but the budgets haven't changed, and so they have to do it much more cost effectively. And so the market trend that allowed Flashstock to grow is, like, if you're a brand and you're creating content, you tend to want to be on the set, at the shoot, controlling all the different aspects of it. And if you kind of peel that back and why do they do it, it's as an individual, your ability to process a pretty big data set in real time and make tweaks and adjustments to ensure the output is exactly what you want is a task best suited for a human being. And so it tends to create these big elaborate shoots, which are cost, which are very cumbersome. And so now with computing power and all the algorithms that are out there, you can actually ingest a lot of those upfront requirements that a brand needs to be successful in their execution through software and through that data science piece, and then apply it to a set of creators that are external to a network to do it much faster. And so the big differentiator for our product is, if you're Nestle Haagen-Dazs ice cream from Nestle, I can tell our platform the visual identity, the look and feel, what people should look like, what the product should look like. We standardize that and synthesize that and communicate it to a network. So you don't have to be there, the agency doesn't have to be there, and it can happen much faster and much cheaper.
So you physically have people out there actually?
Yeah, it's a physical network. So it's the notion of today, you could connect with anyone in the world at zero marginal cost.
Right.
And so if I'm a brand, I can scale up, scale down very quickly.
So I'm watching the wall over here. We've got a Shutterstock Custom wall right next to us. And I think one of the things I'm seeing is a can, beer can, I believe it is, in front of Times Square.
Yeah.
So I say, hey, look, this is something that's relevant to my brand, and then they find somebody who's already in New York City who can go out and shoot that?
Yeah, so the beer is Budweiser.
Right.
It's a big global brand.
Yeah.
And so they are, in that specific execution, they have a hypothesis that if I serve you a piece of content that you recognize the geographic location, the fact that you'll engage with that, it's going to be higher.
Right.
So if I'm in Detroit and I see Tiger Stadium and a beer, and we'd be like, oh, that's my hometown. That,
right.
That hits me right here.
Personally.
So conceptually, from a content strategy, it's like, yeah, it makes perfect sense. But then to actually execute that, when your office is in New York and your agency is in New York, how do you do it? You have to coordinate all these people, and you have to fly people around, and it just gets very complex. And so when you have this distributed network and you've got this standardized process, you just match them up, and you can do basically the same execution that you can do right here in New York, anywhere in the world.
So we already talked about Budweiser. What other size of companies, what types of companies are actually using?
So we're heavy in the Fortune 1000. We tend to focus more on B2C. So a company that has a tangible product that they're trying to sell, because they want to insert that product in the images and videos and cinemagraphs to make that favorable impression. So if you're scrolling on your Instagram feed and you see that, you're going to see Budweiser and you're going to see Times Square, and it's going to try to engage you. We're not as strong in B2B, because if you want like old people on a roller coaster eating an ice cream, it's like that's there and stuck, and it's much more effective. But the notion of having a product and inserting a product automatically increases the complexity of everything.
And you actually mentioned Instagram, so and that authenticity that you said that everybody's talking about. Instagram is a very interesting one ever since the ads platform has launched on Instagram. And so many of those platforms, as you're scrolling through, it's obvious that there's an ad in your face so many times if they're not doing it right. Yeah,
ads suck. Like, no one's going to debate that ads don't suck, and I think that's the marketer's challenge. So when we look at our customer base, so you're the social media manager, for Budweiser. Your job is to create compelling content in the feed of all of these millennials that are flocking to this device and spending 3 hours a day. But how do you create it? You have limited budgets. So social in particular is usually viewed within a big company as an inexpensive, like cheap and cheerful thing. But the complexity of telling a story in 3-6 seconds that feels authentic and resonates with the consumer is really, really hard. It's a completely new craft, right? And to do that with minimal budget is a real challenge.
Yeah, I think about, I'm into trail running. That's something that I absolutely love to do. And if I'm scrolling through a feed and I come across an ad that is clearly shot in a studio, in the background with the shoes laid out, that doesn't speak to me as a trail runner. But when I see the beautiful vistas and the trails and the waterfalls and all that, there happens to be somebody in there running those 100%. Trails.
It's interesting. You're starting to see a big separation between like the lifestyle, like you're almost like your indulgence brands, and then everything else, like shampoo. Like, do you need someone to tell you a story about shampoo? I don't know. But if you're passionate about running and you want to resonate with the values of another group that does it, your ability to insert a product there is tough. So actually what we're seeing is this bullwhip effect with big brands so they start off in that full production mode where they're doing that shoot and they're spending a ton of money, but then they're not getting the output because their feedback from the consumers is like, that's not real. It feels overproduced. So then they go to the complete opposite and they try to use user-generated content. And so user-generated content tends to come back, and it's like, yeah, the shoes are there, but they're worn down and they're
blurry,
dirty, and like this guy's got a pot belly. They're like, we don't want to use that product. Not you. We don't want to use that product, that shot on our website. And so with this network model, you get a nice hybrid between like a consumer living the experience and telling that back to the audience versus the brand pushing it out.
Well, great. Well, Grant, thanks for joining us on the stage today.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.
Cheers. And we will be back with more AW360 from Advertising Week New York.